In the books I chose to read, teachers are portrayed in a couple different ways. I would say, pulling from my own personal experience, that Mr. Slinger, the teacher in Lily's Purple Plastic Purse, is the most accurate portrayal of a real normal teacher. He is an influence that causes Lily to want to be a teacher, and has to be stern with Lily when she's acting up. But he is still caring enough to send her home with an encouraging note, hoping for a better day tomorrow. In Chrysanthemum, Miss Twinkle steps in as a prominent influence to the children, who had been picking on the main character as her name was a flower, letting the children know that her name, too, was also a flower, completely changing the children's opinions and giving Chrysanthemum a new confidence. And Miss Nelson is missing. You get two kinds of teachers being represented. Miss Nelson is the nicest teacher who never yells or disciplines the students and lets them walk all over her. When Miss Nelson goes missing, Miss Swamp comes in and is the opposite. She puts them to work, assigns lots of homework, and makes them sit still or choose to face the consequences. It ends up being Miss Nelson who is dressed up as Miss Swamp, but at the end you see the children are much better behaved and respectful when she returns as Miss Nelson. In The Magic School Bus, Miss Frizzle is portrayed as a crazy off-the-wall teacher. You can sense a fear from her students, such as Ronald, but her unconventional style of teaching helps the students grasp knowledge and come up with their science fair projects. In The School Children's Blizzard, the teacher is portrayed as a strong leader and decision maker, as she acts as a guardian over the children when the blizzard strikes. Lastly, my favorite book of the selection was Miss Spitfire, the depiction of Anne Sullivan, the teacher credited with teaching Helen Keller how to communicate. It goes in depth about the struggle it took to reach Helen being deaf and blind. The patience and persistence Anne shows through the book is heartwarming, even when she is cursing Helen under her breath. She was determined to teach her. The part of the book that stuck with me the most is when Helen finally grabs her first glimpse of understanding with the water. She suddenly wants to know what everything is called, including what Anne is called, when she signs to Helen that she is teacher. In the afterword, it goes on to say that Helen's referred to Anne as teacher for the rest of her life. Teachers are portrayed in many different ways in literature and media, which can have a positive and negative effect on the way that teachers are perceived by the general public. The online articles provided in this assignment module didn't quite feel like they pertained to the portrayal of teachers, so while I included some information from R6, 7, 8, and 9, I've also included information from other sources that I found researching the topic. In the article from Wake Forest, Mary Dalton, Wake Forest communication and media expert, speaks on how the stereotype of teachers being burnt out or bad apples is dangerous. It pushes people away from teaching, depicting it as a dead-end job. Dalton also talks about how teachers were once portrayed as important roles in society, but after the rise of programs such as No Child Left Behind and the Common Core curriculum, it has led to a societal littling of the profession. This coincides with more portrayals of unprofessional and comical teachers. While we have plenty of portrayals of teachers in the media, viewers and readers don't learn much about the profession at all. In a New York Times article titled, "Why Teachers on TV Have to Be Incompetent or Inspiring," the point is made that in the media we see absolutely no teaching, which is something that takes competence, not charisma. But what we do see is a focus on teachers making a bond with students on an individual level. It goes on to talk about how teachers don't have the same amount of respect that other professions such as doctors or lawyers have, and how the media exponents that. Organizations such as the Teacher Salary Project are trying to challenge these conceptions on the most basic level of trying to convey that teachers work hard and should not only be respected, but paid more. Paying teachers more helps retain teachers, leading to a higher level of education, and especially in places that desperately need better teachers but struggle to maintain and keep them there. The New York Times article previously mentioned also makes comments on the demographic of children that are portrayed and how it coincides with the portrayal of the teacher. Whiter, more middle to upper class teachers are portrayed as comical or incompetent, whereas lower minority-based class teachers are viewed as heroic and hardworking, which is a trope we've been talking about through this class. But after listening to the New York Times podcast, The Daily, the episode, What Hollywood Keeps Getting Wrong About Race, about the movie Green Book, it shows that this isn't a new idea in media, but one that unfortunately continues and repeats itself, especially when it comes to white redemption and white savior tropes. News outlets also have their own ideas what it's like to be a teacher. When Times released an article titled Rotten Apples, an article about how it has become harder to fire bad teachers due to tenure and how tech millionaires have created a solution to it, there was an extreme backlash from real teachers. They believed that if anybody actually asked a real teacher, they would defend tenure. The teachers in protests felt like they were unfairly portrayed by the media and are constantly having to defend their profession from people who have never been a teacher and will never understand their profession and their struggles. Overall, I've found since the beginning of this course, there have been lots of different interpretations of teachers in the media. But the one fictional source I found to be the most accurate depiction of real teachers is in the children's picture novels. I find some solace in this because the intended viewers of picture books have probably just started their interactions with teachers, but have a long way to go before they can decide if they want to further their education and continue to exist in the same environment as teachers. While the depiction of teachers in media and television doesn't help their case, I think a lot of it stems from nostalgia, the nostalgia of teachers and being in school. And it's easier to remember that teachers that stuck out for being the best or the worst. And the primary audience of these portrayals are finished with school and don't have to deal with teachers on a daily basis anymore.